Mr. Moore, hello, hello. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
How's it feel? Has it sunk in yet?
It feels great. We're excited because we spent the past year and a half really talking to Marylanders and hearing about their hopes and their dreams and their frustrations and sharing our vision, our values. And I'm just thankful and very humbled that in a very overwhelming fashion, the people of the state of Maryland have spoken. And they've spoken that they want our state to go fast and be bold and to do big things. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity.
I want to talk a little bit more about what you mean when you say big things. But first, I know Governor Larry Hogan called you and congratulated you. How did that conversation go?
It was wonderful. I was very humbled that pretty much right after the election was called, the governor called and was kind and was gracious and just talked about how we're going to have a very smooth and a very orderly transition. And and it's important for me because I do want the people of the state of Maryland to know that come January, the Moore Miller administration is going to be ready to move. It will start off with a transition and a transformation process that is going to be historically inclusive and historically transparent. But we're excited to get to work come January.
I want to talk about that because Governor Larry Hogan, as you know, very popular governor, even among Democrats, two-term governor. How do you follow that up? Obviously, you want to create your own legacy, but how do you either expand on that bipartisanship or maybe kind of find your own route?
I think the way we campaigned, I think, is a very clear indication how I plan on governing, which is we went everywhere. We went from the western mountains to the eastern shores, from Frederick and Cecil County and Harford County to southern Maryland and everywhere in between. And we went to a lot of places that people said, you're going to a lot of places, there's not a lot of Democrats. And I said, yeah, but there's a lot of Marylanders, and I plan on being their governor too. And so that's exactly how I plan on governing. We are going to be reaching out to everybody because in order for Maryland to win this decade, it means that all Marylanders must be seen and heard and to be able to participate in the larger growth that we're pushing for in our state.
As you know, there have been some tough times here. I'm talking about the economy, inflation. We're looking at a recession at this point. So there's a tough road ahead. Maryland has a budget surplus. How do you use that to specifically tackle or perhaps alleviate the burden in some areas for Marylanders?
Well, we do know that times are tough for a lot of Maryland families, that when people say things feel like they're getting more expensive, the answer is it's because they are. And we know there are some real economic headwinds that are heading our way. But the thing that we know is that it's going to take intentionality and leadership in order to navigate us through that. And that means things like how are you getting people back to work? How are you increasing participation in the workforce, where right now Maryland ranks 37th in the country in unemployment? It means being able to address the fact that right now in Maryland, we have 2 available jobs for every single person filing for unemployment. And that's because there's a disconnect in skill sets. So we've got to do things like getting people back to work, focusing on job retraining and job reskilling, making sure we have an education system that's preparing our students for the jobs of now and for the jobs of the future. And then also focusing on things like increasing wages so we can decrease the amount of people and eliminate the amount of people who are going to work, in some cases working multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. If you can create and increase participation in the economy, it's the best way of making sure that our state can deal with any type of economic headwinds that might be coming our way.
Another major concern for Marylanders, carjackings, crimes, particularly involving even juveniles. What will you specifically do to address that? There's a lot of conversation about solutions surrounding that. Obviously, police sometimes have one idea, folks on the other have another. What is your proposition?
Yeah, we need to be clear that public safety is going to be the #1 priority. And public safety is the #1 priority of any chief executive, and it will be my priority as the state's next chief executive. And that means working in partnership with our local jurisdictions, making sure that we are fixing a broken parole and probation system, where right now 1/3 of all violent crimes is happening by people who are in violation of parole and probation. So we know who they are, but we continue to allow offenders, and particularly violent offenders, back onto our streets. We've got to do a better job of keeping these illegal guns out of our neighborhoods that are flooding into Maryland. And that means working with our federal partners in order to make that happen. And it means we also have to address these root causes of crime that continues to make public safety so elusive for so many families, and being able to put more state resources in local jurisdictions to be able to help address things like closure rates and the fact that many of our law enforcement are just frankly overburdened by the amount of difficulty they continue to face in our communities.
Switching gears here a little bit, Washington Commanders. Last time we asked you about this, by the way, as you know, they play in Maryland. They're looking at other venues in Virginia and D.C. A lot has changed since then with Dan Snyder talking about selling the team. How do you feel about that, and does that change your position on whether or not and how hard you will fight to keep them in Maryland?
Well, I mean, the only thing that's changed is that Dan Snyder has said that there's something that he wants to do. No one really has a clear indication as to what that exactly means. But to be honest, that is actually irrelevant to me. Because the most important thing in the North Star about all of our conversations about the Commanders is going to be, I want the Commanders to stay. But it cannot happen if we're just mortgaging a future and not having any forms of economic development that's then taking place that everyone can participate in. I believe in the Commanders, and I want them to be able to have a home here in Maryland, but not if it means that the only type of economic activity that is going to take place is going to be exclusively with a football team. It needs to generate more, and it needs to be more participatory for this deal to work.
Last question here, wrapping up. Dan Cox, has he called you to concede, and what has that conversation entailed? How did it go?
Yeah, so I'm thankful that I just received a call from Dan Cox, and it was a very gracious call where he conceded, and we had a chance to talk about the fact that his son is also a member of the 82nd Airborne Division, my old division in the military, and so I'm looking forward to being able to move forward now as a state, and to know that we're excited to have the Moore Miller administration coming into office in January.
All right, this isn't a question, it's a request or invitation. We got to have you into the Fox 5 studios, by the way. We're in Bethesda, Maryland, so you've got an open invitation.
And I would love to take you up on that invitation, too. I look forward to getting down there and seeing you in person.
All right, likewise. Thanks so much for speaking with us. Congrats again.
It's my joy. Thank you so much.
Yeah.